We are almost done. The last thing we need to do, which can be tricky, is to assemble all of our components. And we're going to use a couple different types of options under assemble. The joint assembly, shortcut of J, will give us a bunch of options. And I intentionally am showing you this since there are no components to assemble, but you might be saying, well, I'm looking at them, but these are bodies. So if you right click on the bodies menu, you just turn them all into components. So now these are all components now, and it's like a different variable. They're placed in a different category that this command will now be able to see them. So they were invisible before to the join command. Okay, one other tricky thing about assembling these things is like whatever side you click on, this is not going to make perfect sense until you see it. Whatever side you click on first is the thing that's going to move. So, but if I click on the top of this, and then I say I want to move it over here. So if component 1, I click this shape, and then I say I want to move it over here, it's going to flip over. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but it flipped over. This little tab used to be on the other side. In fact, let's undo. So what we actually have to do is, for lack of a better method, before we go to add the joint, we want to click joint. Well, we want to be looking at the bottom of the piece that we want to move. And it's awkward because this has no middle. So maybe pick something like along the edge. So there's a bunch of triangles that show up. I want to click on the bottom face at this location. Now I can use the home button to help me here. Bottom face on this location, I want it to match up with the top face on this location. And it should just kind of like line up perfectly. So I kind of matched like position to position. But again, I had to click the bottom of the first one on the edge, right in the center, just so I had like a point of reference that I could find again on the other one. Once I click that, I do want this to be a rigid joint, but you'll notice there's a bunch of options here. So today we're going to use rigid and planar. Okay? Click OK. Everything looks good. Yeah, these look like they're two parts, but in real life they will be, so we're not really going to be like hiding that imperfection. That will be visible when we glue them together. Okay. Now, when we go to add these pieces in, they are going to be kind of like overlapping. So we just have to be careful that the perimeter gets turned off. And so I still want to be adding these to here. Now, it doesn't matter, right? In reality, it doesn't matter if I click the top of this square and it flips over because it's still a square. It doesn't matter if I click the top of the rectangle, top of the circle, top of the circle, because when they flip over, they are symmetric. And so that process of assembly should be much faster. I'm going to click on joint, component 1, sure. Click the top of it and pop it right in the middle. So it flipped over, I don't really care. But I do want to make this a planar joint, which means it can slide on the x-axis and it spins, so the normal, it spins on the z-axis. Same thing, J. Oh, sorry. When it does that, if it says continue or capture position, take a step back and save. Because I moved some things around and it wants to remember where they are. Okay, J. Fine. Capture position. This guy, to here. It says where do you want it? So I'm just gonna like click somewhere. It's gonna flip over, and it's also planar, and that's cool. J. I'm gonna put this on that face. It's gonna look like it's dancing around the page. Every time. Okay, good enough. So I'm just clicking these things onto the background, sorry, the wood base, and I don't really want them stacked up at the moment. I can play around with this at a later date. Still planar, still spins on the z-axis, still slides on the xy. It says x, but it's two planes. And then finally, I do want to click, I don't want this dog to flip over because the puzzle wouldn't work. So I do want to be looking at the bottom of the dog. And I'm doing this on a trackpad. There's some shortcuts you can use, but I'm going to be looking at the bottom of the dog first. Then I'll press joint. Then I click the bottom of the dog. Then I click home. Then I click the surface I want it to go to. So it's spinning around like crazy. And there is the issue, of course, that the pieces are overlapping. And there's ways we can deal with that. But for now, if I look at the top view of everything, I have my pieces. And they have their, sorry, a little bit stuck here. I have my pieces and they have their positions and they're all on that plane. Now, if I turn back the perimeter, you can see it looks like a hot mess. And so I need to do some rearranging before everything kind of fits nicely into the puzzle. But that's next video.